there's a deeper program called the Legacy Program that has really seems to have been trying to hide the most shocking pieces of what we know from even the UAP task force. We've had Lou Elizondo on this show, and he talked to us about some of what we'd learned. This is years ago. I mean, it was when we first launched the program in 2020. But here he is as part of the documentary, Age of Disclosure, speaking to what this Legacy Program has uncovered. I'm just going to run the SOT 54 here.
We discovered another deeply hidden and much larger UAP program. This program was so sensitive that it was withheld from the Secretary of Defense, Congress, and even the President of the United States. This program is referred to as the Legacy Program. This program had been capturing, retrieving, and reverse engineering UAPs since at least 1947. On numerous occasions, these retrievals included the bodies of non-humans, some sort of intelligent being that is not human.
On numerous occasions. I mean, that is just stunning, David. To like people who don't follow this, he's saying they found some sort of alien beings' bodies along with the crafts, that the government has had it for decades. It's happened multiple times, and that they're all, the whole theory of the entire movie with all of these storied experts, these are not crackpots. I mean, if they're crackpots, boy, they found dozens of them who have been at the highest levels of our government over generations, who are all saying, yes, this has happened. And the reason that they keep it secret from everyone, including, they point out in the piece, our own presidents over time, is what?
Well, it depends on the time epoch in which administration. Certainly, there were former secretaries of defense and presidents that were briefed on this matter. It depended on their level of trust that the deep state, if you will, the lifers in the governments had with those said individuals. And unfortunately, this subject has been a victim of a lot of, I'll call it domestic information operations, something I discussed initially publicly in 2023. And there's certainly been this Game of Thrones activity with multiple factions of the deep state in a bipartisan manner. The Republicans and the Democrats are both guilty. And even in a recent previous administration, in the Obama administration, there was certainly actions taken strategically to help a particular presidential candidate, possibly if this subject were to become normalized and they got elected president. So there's been a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of, I'll call it house of cards type activities in the past. But it is true that a lot of people have been withheld. I found it deeply disgusting and shocking that even I was not fully accessed into these activities, and I did have a congressionally mandated need to know. I investigated this on behalf of the first Trump administration and some of Trump's cabinet members, and Senator Rubio when he was senator, now Secretary Rubio, and providing my findings up the chain. I was just very disturbed to find how this was controlled, the self-licking ice cream cone, unaccountable. Everybody owns a piece. Nobody owns the outcome, and there's not really a mob boss. The closest person we got that I was aware of was, unfortunately, now deceased Vice President Dick Cheney, Darth Vader himself. Not shocking that he was involved in this. And essentially, when he left in 2009, that was the last time that these activities really had central leadership.
Yeah, because the film posits that, the current and the last head of CIA probably don't know, but there's like lower branches within the CIA that have specific responsibilities, and the career employees there probably do. And they don't look at the political appointees brought in by a president as someone to whom they need to disclose anything. They're like, this guy's going to be gone in, a year, 2 years, 4 at the most. I'm not going to keep disclosing this to person after person. I'm keeping this very dark, as my predecessor did. And it also posits that When it's super secret, they've been offloading the research to private contractors, and that way they don't have to include any of these disclosures in response to FOIA requests made of the federal government because it's been given to a private entity. But that too leads to no accountability and no person over the life of 20 years who's got real responsibility, because companies get sold, new people come in, and then these companies may just exploit the materials for the latest technological advantage. Who knows, like, I don't know, some AI development or some fast speed train development that a company may have used the information to build a commercial advantage with.
That's totally true. You've actually accurately described how it is. Early on the global war on terror, a lot of the money that was initially given to these companies was essentially reallocated for overseas contingency operations. And these contractors essentially started to do their own thing, if you will, something called IRAD, Internal Research and Development. And privately, they continued certain things that actually the government was trying to cancel as it relates to the subject. And they went off and retrieved and exploited things essentially on their own and only loosely accountable back to their government handlers. And it's funny you mentioned the CIA. Naturally, there's a lot of good men and women that work there. My wife actually was a CIA officer, and she also served in the Air Force with me. But Chairwoman Luna and the task force and the committee staff, certainly I assisted in my other professional capacity, helping Representative Burleson's office, did send legal interrogatives to several agencies and private companies. CIA was one of them, and curiously enough, CIA provided what I considered an extremely disrespectful response. They declined to answer our interrogatives on this matter, which is their participation in crash retrieval operations, and just referred us to the Pentagon's Aero Office, which has a nebulous and concerning history in itself. And I just find it very interesting that CIA did that. Now, I'm not saying John Ratcliffe or Michael Ellis, who's the acting general counsel and deputy director, had a hand in that response, but they certainly are the leaders of their organization. John Ratcliffe has spoke positively on this issue previously, and I would hope that John Ratcliffe was placed there by D&I Gabbard and the president to enact some reforms on the CIA. And unfortunately, the CIA has a lot of skeletons in its closets. Other things I know about that I can't talk about that are conventional national security issues, but the crash retrieval issue, unfortunately, is certainly one of them, and they've done a lot of concerning things.
What's being alleged by you and many others is that they have literal skeletons in their closet or whatever
they do,
whatever's inside an alien being. Because it sounds crazy. To just throw it out there short form, it sounds crazy, but person after person, distinguished scientist after intel person is making the same claim, validating the stories about Roswell, telling other stories that have happened at it's many military facilities with what appears to be a clear alien craft coming overhead, looking almost diamond-like in shape, being huge, sitting there hovering, coming from something like 80,000 feet and dropping down, then hovering in a way that no vehicle that we know of right now could possibly do, nothing invented by man. Here is a montage from the movie of top U.S. officials talking about how all of this is relevant because it may pose a serious national security threat. It's SOP 42.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus.
If you have objects in the sky that you cannot identify, that's a problem because it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be any adversary.
Well, any unexplained phenomenon could pose a national security threat.
Clapper.
That's the way you have to treat those things.
There's something violating our airspace. There's something fouling our ranges that even the people we've tasked in the executive branch to understand this cannot provide an explanation. So I would say, in addition to the national security implications, this has implications for basic trust and confidence in the American government.
I just want to play one more. Here we have a former Navy pilot describing the UAPs defying extreme weather and physics in SOP 45.
In 2014 to 2015, we were operating off the coast of Virginia Beach, off the eastern seaboard. It was during this time that we upgraded our radar from the APG-73 to the APG-79 radar. And this allowed us to essentially see more objects we weren't expecting to see. And there's a particular case of one of these objects maintaining a complete stationary position inside of 120 knot winds, essentially inside of a hurricane.
We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. So look at this thing. It's rotated.
It just seems like they're not affected by the environment the way we are.
And there's testimonial after testimonial like that, David. That's not unique to have an experienced fighter pilot. Like our men and women in the military have been quietly coming forward and reporting on this for a long time, only to be told, keep your mouth shut.
No, that's true. And I have Air Force pilot friends of mine that have seen astounding things while on duty, to include a glowing triangular craft, hovering above other aircraft cruising at 50,000 feet. And I did want to point out General Clapper, the former DNI, in the documentary. Mm-hmm. I certainly applaud him for at least speaking out in general. He goes on, I believe, I've only seen clips of Age of Disclosure, not the whole thing, where there was a program when he was the Director of National Intelligence where they were tracking these vehicles over Area 51, of course, the famed classified test location. And I'm a little bit disappointed, as a fellow Air Force officer, and certainly General Clapper rose to the ranks as 3-star general. That's all he said in the documentary, that was a program he was aware of. In fact, without being inappropriate, I will say that General Clapper was well aware of the crash retrieval issue, managed the crash retrieval issue, and when he was the DNI, USDI, and DIA director, he placed people in critical roles to manage this issue, both publicly and I'll just say non-publicly as well. And I'll allow the audience distill what I'm saying at the risk of being inappropriate or going too far with my discussion. So General Clapper, Stephanie O'Sullivan, other folks in the IC that are well aware of this issue, that were in rooms discussing this issue, I ask you to be greater leaders on this. I should not be the only former military officer and intelligence official that is being completely candid with the information that they were exposed to. So perhaps
once again, James Clapper understates what he knows and what he's done. A new year means new financial goals, like making sure your savings are secure and diversified. Will this be the year you decide to talk to someone from Birch Gold Group? They use an educational approach with a deep understanding of macroeconomics. There are forces pushing the dollar lower and gold higher, which is why they believe every American should own physical gold. So until January 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, you just text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you are still eligible for a rebate of up to $10,000. Consider making right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before January 30th. Text MK to the number 989898. Claim your eligibility today. Again, text MK to 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.